There we go. It will be recorded and archived in case you can't make it live. As I said, it is based on the book How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram X. Kendi. And his biography says he is one of the foremost historians and leading anti-racist voices. He is a #1 New York Times best-selling author and the founding director of the Anti-Racist Research and Policy Center at the American University in Washington, D.C. He's a professor of history and international relations, contributor to The Atlantic, CBS News, and starting tomorrow, it looks like, or the day after, he will become a professor of history and the founding director of the Boston University Center for Anti-Racist Research. His biography is quite long in his list of accomplishments. He will also become the 2020 and 2021 Francis B. Cashin Fellow at the Radcliffe Institute for Advanced Study at Harvard University. He is the author of The Black Campus Movement, which won the W.E.B. Du Bois Book Prize, and Stamped from the Beginning, the definitive history of racist ideas in America. He is the youngest ever winner of the NBA for nonfiction. Now, that is not the National Basketball Association. That is the National Book Award. However, growing up, he said that he did always dream of being part of the NBA. So maybe not the one he was thinking of, but he is a member of the NBA now. His third book, the book we are doing, How to Be an Anti-Racist, has been a #1 New York Times bestseller, and made several other best books of 2019 lists. He's published numerous essays and contributed to op-eds in the New York Times, the Guardian, the Washington Post, the London Review. I'm not going to read them all because the list is unbelievably long, but CNN, MSNBC, NPR, Al Jazeera, PBS, BBC, and a lot of others. He strives to be I like this one part. He strives to be a hardcore anti-racist and a softcore vegan. He enjoys joking it up with family and friends and partaking in African-American culture. His middle name originally was Henry, and he changed it to Zolani, which means peace in Zulu. And he changed his surname, Rogers, to Kendi when he wed Sadiga Kendi, a pediatric emergency physician from Albany, Georgia. They chose their name together and unveiled it at their wedding. And like I said, his biography goes on and on and on. But let's get into the book. I'm just going to check right here and make sure we have, oh yeah, we got people waiting. Let me admit them. So welcome to our book study, everybody. And before we get into the book itself, I just want to say what I envision this being is more than just me and Nanda when she gets on talking about the book, but I want it to be more of an interactive experience. And I also want to begin by sharing why this book spoke to me and a little bit about myself. As I said, I am the minister at Unity of Joplin. I've worked for over 20 years with the International Youth of Unity. It's an international organization of youth from all religions, all races, all nationalities. I also am the co-founder of the Joplin Spiritual Evolution Center and served as a licensed Unity teacher in Albuquerque, New Mexico for many years. I've been a school teacher. I have worked in the public sector as a material handling specialist, working with the military, Los Alamos National Labs, and various other organizations. So I come from a very, I guess, well-rounded or confusing background, however you want to look at it. But my passion has always been co-creating a world that works for all. And that's not easy. How do you co-create a world that works for all without doing work on yourself, without looking within? As I said, I also lived in Tijeras, New Mexico. I worked in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And one of the things that is unique about that community is it's a very diverse community. And it doesn't have the same degree of racism that we see in other places here in the Midwest, actually. But it does have racism. And though I always considered myself non-racist, I grew up in a white household. I was born and raised in a white middle-class family, grew up in suburbia right outside of Chicago in a modern planned community that, looking back on it, I realized did not include people of color. It didn't register with me, of course, when I was a child. It didn't think about it. But my family, while maybe not overtly racist, was white. And one of the things I began to realize actually some years ago is, though I considered myself non-racist, and we'll talk about why that is not necessarily a good thing later, just because of who I was, because of the background I grew up in, because of my cultural programming, there were vestiges. There are aspects of racism within my experience, within my personality. And we're going to learn in this book that admitting that and recognizing it is not a bad thing either. In fact, I would say admitting that I have a little bit of racism within me is better than claiming to be non-racist. We'll get more into that in a few minutes. One of the greatest realizations I had many years ago was that I cannot know what it's like to be a person of another color or another ethnicity or another sexual orientation or gender identity or immigrant status. I mean, the list can go on and on and on, because I have not lived it. I've not had the experience. I can hear about it. I can empathize. I can strive to be open and understanding and compassionate, but I can't truly know what it's like. And so part of what I do as just part of my spiritual practice is I'm always going within and saying, what do I still need to work on? What do I still need to grow in? What areas? What are my growing edges? I just love it when people ask me, what are your growing edges? Well, I have a lot. And I hope, we can all be honest and say we all do. And so regarding race, that's one of my growing edges that I hope I will always be growing in, because there is always more to learn. In the introductory video to this, I mentioned that racism is an addiction that white America suffers from to a huge extent. And I think all races probably suffer from it to some extent. And there's layers to it. The more we work on it, the more we peel away racist ideas and beliefs, the more we find there is to do. And that is a good thing. So I'm excited to have so many people. I'm looking at how many people are on here on Zoom and on Facebook. And it's just, wow, I'm so glad you are all here, because this is a timely topic. It's been calling to me for the last, most of my life, certainly for the last 4 years, and certainly for the last month or so. And I'm excited to have co-travelers on this experience. So welcome everybody. And like I said, I hope you will all feel free to speak up and participate. If you are on Zoom, there is an icon at the bottom where you can raise your hand, and I will do my best to keep an eye on that to see when your hands are raised, and I will be inviting you to comment. But if something comes up in the midst of it, raise your hand, speak. And I'm looking forward to the sharing of ideas. And I was hoping Nanda would get on here. I don't see her yet, but she will be with us. So how many of you, just with a show of hands, on Facebook before I begin, guys, obviously you can't verbally ask a question, but I do have the chat open. So feel free to put any questions or comments in chat, and I will see them. So just show of hands, how many of you have read the book or are reading the book? Neely? It looks like you might be the only one. Wow. Okay. Well, I can make this up as we go along. No, I won't do that. Chapter 1 is really about definitions. What is a racist? And the question, am I a racist? What is a racist? Any ideas? Anybody have any idea? Neely, go ahead.
Looks like she has a customer. She can't. I could take a stab at it.
Well, I'm trying to unmute her, but she's not unmuting.
Well, there's somebody in her lobby. She pointed to the side. She's got someone
Oh,
there.
she's got, so okay. All right. So anybody else want to answer the question, what is a racist?
There's Cheryl.
Cheryl.
From what I have been reading, what I gather, I think I would say a racist is a person, any person who puts themselves above another group of people.
Okay.
You know, as white people, we put ourselves in a, you know, maybe not consciously, but we put ourselves in the position where we're better than somebody else. Whether it be a black person or be a person from India or somebody from Saudi Arabia or whatever, that feeling of superiority would define somebody who's racist, I think.
Okay.
Okay, I can speak now. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
So when I was reading the first chapter of the book, it's basically anyone who's not working towards equity for all. I mean, that it's any time that a person is thinking better or worse than another person.
Okay. Better or worse than another person?
I would say that, add to that, that if we are participating in a system which operates by oppressing others, and we're not working to change that system, actively change the system, then we are racist.
Hear, hear.
Yeah. You pretty much hit the definition in the book. Have you read it?
I ordered it.
Okay.
I ordered it, but it hasn't come yet.
Okay, well, you're right on. The definition in the book is a racist is one who is supporting a racist policy through their actions or inaction or expressing a racist idea. And so in the beginning, when I said, I am a racist, I used to say I'm not a racist. It is because there have been times in my life, and even at times now, where I'm complacent. Complacency makes us a racist. And we may support a policy without even realizing we are supporting it. We'll get more into that in a little bit more. Anybody else have a definition? And while you're talking, I have to answer Nanda's request right here. She's asking for the link. Anybody?
Well, I could talk about this.
Okay. Go ahead, Kendi.
I just watched the video. I've been seeing it online a lot from movie stars and musicians that were black and reporters. And they said, if you want to stop being racist, stop talking about it.
Okay.
And I thought that was very interesting. I want to say a few things, though. I have always felt one way about being a racist or a non-racist, and another way. But my 38-year-old son is defining it differently than I. And so that's what I'm in here for. I don't, you know, and I invited my very good friend, Daryl Cosman, here from Minnesota. And I appreciate you coming, Daryl. He visited our home a few years ago and had never been in the countryside outside of Minneapolis at that point in his life. So I kind of thought that being a non-racist was treating everybody kind of, you know, equally.
Mhm.
And so, I mean, whites and blacks and Latinos have hurt me a huge amount individually, but I haven't wanted to stop talking to all blacks or all Latinos or whites of a certain category just because they hurt me. I wanted to relate to the individuals who hurt me, not by their complexion. And so I thought that meant that I was a non-racist. I don't want to get into the anti-racist thing right now, but
Well, we're not there yet.
my I think I'm not quite sure. My son hasn't really given me a great definition. I think that because he believes that because I notice what their complexion is, that I'm a racist. And I disagree. You know, I went to college in London, England. I met a lot of people of a lot of different complexions from many different countries. And meeting someone like Daryl is so much different, you know, who's never been to Africa. I don't think he's even been to Europe. When I met people from Africa that were born in Africa, they are culturally different. They look at things different.
We're going to hear more about that in a little while, Kendi. But we got a lot of people on here, so I want to make sure everybody gets a chance to talk.
Yeah, you know, Daryl unmuted his.
And Kendi, make sure you mute yourself. Thank you.
And also, I want to introduce Nanda. She is now on. And I think she's on.
Yeah, she looks to be there, but I just noticed that Daryl his microphone, so maybe he wants to say something.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch. I'm not going to be long. I know y'all got a lot to cover, but I just wanted to touch on a couple things. First of all, thanks for having me, and Candace, thanks for inviting me here. Because I'm willing to sit here, listen, and learn. I don't want to speak much, but there's a few things that Candace brought up that I want to touch on. One of the first things she said there was a celebrity that said if you don't want to be a racist, then don't talk about it. I don't agree with that. I believe that if you don't want to be a racist, it's a conversation that you must have in order for you to overcome such a characteristic. Number two, if you don't want to be racist, I got one line for you: treat others how you expect to be treated. Okay, it's just as simple as that. And the reason why I know that that's very simple is because I have kids that go to school with a lot of people that are many different shades of human, and I don't send them to school telling them who they can and who they can't talk to or be friends with based on the color of their skin. Because what I teach my kids is you are to judge people by their character. And that was another thing that I wanted to touch base on, because I noticed Candace said that she has interactions with people with many different ethnic backgrounds. And she does not want to blame the whole ethnic group for one idiot that had hurt her feelings. All right. Now, one of the things that I will tell you is that even though you might have one idiot that might offend somebody of a different ethnic group, you best believe that they also offend people of their own ethnic group as well. Okay, because I experience a lot of that. Even being, I'm not going to call myself African American. I'm going to call myself Black, because not all Black people are descendants of Africa. That's number one. That's one thing that that's one thing that everybody that is of European descent must know. All right. The other thing, I pretty much think that I covered it all. But yeah, you know, like I say, just treat others how you expect to be treated, and that's as simple as that.
You bring up some very, very good points. Thank you.
No problem.
Yeah.
You're very welcome.
In the very first chapter of this book, Ibram Kendi actually talks of that racism is not limited to racism between races. It happens within all of us. You know, where I come from, I see it occurring in, you know, in communities of the same color. You know, we have a very mixed population in New Mexico. And I see racism that occurs between people who live up in northern New Mexico and people who live in, you know, the more central or southern New Mexico, and it has nothing to do with necessarily color of skin, and yet it is the same kind of energy. So again, the definition from the book of racist is one who is supporting a racist policy through their actions or inaction, or expressing a racist idea. And Nanda, are you on there yet? I think she's having probably audio problems. So anyway, let's take a look at what anti-racist is. And the definition of an anti-racist is one who is supporting an anti-racist policy through their actions or expressing an anti-racist idea. Now, we will get more into what exactly those may be. But any comments on that definition? I'll read it again. One who is supporting an anti-racist policy through their actions or expressing an anti-racist idea. I see. Okay. So an anti-racist idea. An anti-racist idea would be something along the lines of, actually, where are you, Daryl? You said something about the human family. I forget your exact word. Not by the human family is not defined by shade of skin.
Yeah, I said the human family. Well, the human, the human character. I see everybody as a collective of people. I believe what I said was different shades of human. That's what I said.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I also want to kind of affirm what you said about not talking about racism is racism. That's just denial. It's not. It doesn't do any good. You know, I remember one time in a conversation many years ago, somebody said, "Well, I don't see color," and that's kind of racist, because color, diversity, color is what makes the human family beautiful, in my opinion. It's we are different, and rather than, you know, we go around saying, "Oh, there's no differences." Yeah, there are differences. We have our unique cultures, our backgrounds, our family DNAs, our cultural experiences and worldviews. And by saying there is no difference, we are denying the flavor, the texture, the depth of humanity, the shades, if you will, like Daryl said, of humanity. And so anti-racism to me says, yes, we are different, and hallelujah. You know, our differences are what make up the whole tapestry. I'm wearing a shirt from our conference last year that says "One Humanity, Many Stories." You know, what good would a book be if it only had one story? So anti-racist is one who supports an anti-racist policy, an anti-racist way of being through their actions, and expressing an anti-racist idea. And I want to point out here that we're not going to do it perfectly. We are growing. That is why we are here as human beings. I believe why we have a life on this planet is we are here to grow and evolve. And if we weren't, then what would be the point of being here? But what a person on a path of awakening, a path of becoming an anti-racist does is we look within and we say, okay, what is it that I am here to learn? What is it that I am here to heal? What layers of this addiction that I said racism is in our culture, because I do believe Americans are very much addicted to race, not in the healthy way. And so what are the layers that we are working on peeling away? And so in the book, in this first chapter, in the introduction to the book, the author says, denial is the heartbeat of racism. You know, just going around, oh, there's not a race problem in America. That's the heartbeat of racism. You know, I grew up, I was born in 1958 outside of Chicago. I saw firsthand a lot of the civil rights struggle, and not with full understanding because I wasn't immersed in it. But I watched it on TV. It was only a few miles from where I lived. My parents and grandparents and family talked about it around the dinner table. And I'll be honest with you, my parents were racist. My grandparents were not. I don't know what happened with my parents' generation, I'll be honest, but they were racist. So, you know, I kind of grew up with this thing of watching this unfold in our culture. And over the course of my childhood, young adulthood, and becoming an adult, I watched as it looked to me as a white person like we were making great progress. And I was a school teacher when Barack Obama was inaugurated as president in, what year was it? First one, 2008. And yeah, I'll be honest with you. I sat there with my students, and I taught at a very diverse school, and watched that inauguration, and I had tears. I was proud of how far we had come. And then I've come to realize we hadn't come as far as I thought we had. Because really what we've seen in the last 4 years with the rise of white supremacy and the re-emergence of an underground racism that has always been here. And so what I've come to realize is we got a lot of work to do still. First, we got to get kind of back to where we were. And then we got to proceed from there because we hadn't come as far as we think we had. So we can't be in denial. We can't not talk about racism. It's an important topic. It's a topic that is way, way overdue, in my opinion, in our culture. And how can we call out racism if we can't see it in ourselves? You know, anybody who's been in AA or any other 12-step program, and I have not, but I've known many, many people who have. And let me tell you, those 12 steps that they use are so powerful for just about everything you can think of in life that you want to work on, that you want to overcome. And one of the first steps in the 12-step programs is, number one, admitting there's a problem, admitting that I have a problem. Even if I think I've overcome it, admitting that I have work to do, and saying, I can't do this alone. You know, and that's what the beauty of this is, having this community come together. And right now, right in this now moment here on Zoom and on Facebook, we are in at least 6 states, just glancing at the names on here. We are all ages, from myself, 62 years old, some of you may be older, all the way down to, I see my grandson is on here, he's 10 years old. You know, we're reaching a lot of people, and this tells me that there's a lot of people ready to do this work. It takes courage, it takes commitment, it takes taking time out of your day, and it takes the willingness to go within. And so denial, we are not going to be in denial. We are going to look at it and call it out in ourselves so that we can then call it out in our society and in our world. Ibram Kendi wrote, racism is not a descriptive word, it is a pejorative word. It's kind of equivalent to saying, I don't like you. And Kendi, you kind of brought it out. You know, there's going to be people in our lives we don't like. as a minister, I said I wouldn't get religious. I'm going to strive not to. But, you know, one of the things that I think all religions teach is the golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do to you. Love one another. But I just want to comment on this. Jesus said, love one another. He didn't say you have to like one another. That's an important thing to realize. You know, Kendi mentioned that she's had people of all races that have hurt her. Of course, we all have. We love each other. We don't have to like each other. I had a friend one time say, you can love the axe murderer, but you don't have to invite them to dinner. You know, we don't have to support bad behavior. And in this case, we don't support racist behavior. Jim, I saw you put, or not Jim. Yeah, Jim, I saw you put your hand up.
Yeah, Gordon, before you get too far ahead of what you had said earlier, there were two things that I would take exception to. The first thing is the definition you gave, and I'm not sure if you read it, if I heard it correctly, but what I heard was that if you are participating in a racist system, a racist system, or you're supporting a racist policy. Now, I think there's some distinction between those two groups because we all, by and large, by virtue of being raised in a white society where we have white privilege, are participating in a racist system.
Yep.
We're not all supporting a racist policy. You see, the difference is I can be unconscious or feel powerless and be participating in a racist system. I have to take a conscious effort. If I'm aware that there's a policy I'm supporting, that puts me in another category, policy that's racist. The second thing.
Wait, before you go to the second, I want to just comment on this, and then I'll let you go to the second.
Okay.
You're right on. We are racist, and by dint of being white, knowingly, unknowingly, consciously, unconsciously, willingly or unwillingly, we do participate in a lot of these policies. Now, what sets us different, which we haven't gotten to yet, is the anti-racist part. The anti-racist is one who says, yeah, this is what is happening. I'm calling it out. I'm going to identify it, and I'm going to say up front, it's not right. So, yeah, you're right on. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. And the other thing, Gordon, you just, if I heard you correctly again, you said something to the effect of, if you're racist, that means you don't like somebody.
No, that's not what I said.
Okay, well, that's what I heard.
Okay, I need to clarify that then.
Okay, just maybe you're going to get to this, but I think there's a difference between having fear, which is a social conditioning. Okay, good.
You bet. Yeah, we will get to that.
Good.
You're on it. I want to clarify what I said. Not liking an individual because they hurt you or did something to you doesn't make you a racist. What makes you a racist is if you judge a whole race based on the actions of an individual or a group of individuals. Okay, so if somebody who was black hurt me and I said all blacks are bad, obviously that is racist. If I said this person hurt me, but that doesn't mean everybody in that race will hurt me, that's not racist. Okay, cleared up. I saw somebody else was going to say something.
Yeah, Jamie.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking too. I think for me, this idea of being an anti-racist, as time has gone on, it means that I have to challenge some very basic things about my own reality. I mean, I was raised on the other side of the state in a rural area, a little south of St. Louis, and I was taught a certain version of history and certain, kind of Eurocentric version of civilization and all of this, and I think that's probably what I mean. I see that I feel it in myself, and I see it in others. Is that sometimes when you touch on these ideas of anti-racism and things like that, the visceral reaction is that you're really challenging people's version of reality, of what they perceive as reality, of Western civilization and all of this, because when I start to educate myself on that, I find out that a lot of what I knew was reality crumbles.
Yep.
And that's a really scary thing. And it's something that me personally, I've kind of gone through at different times, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And that's like kind of the deeper thing of like when I say, well, I don't see race, but there's a whole Western civilization worldview behind not seeing race, and so in some ways, like I have to unlearn a lot of that to understand what I mean by that.
That's a big one, a big nut to crack. I was a history teacher, and oh my God, I looked at some of the textbooks they would send us and I'd throw them away. It's just mind-bogglingly wrong. Definitely told, but from the side of the victor. Michael.
Well, I just want to know if we could check on Nanda again, see if she's...
Nanda, can you hear me?
She's muted.
Yeah.
But
I tried to unmute her, but she's not unmuting. I know she's yeah, I don't know. I can't get her in there.
Yeah, I know her signal's bad. I just want to make sure that she was not being neglected.
Yeah, Nanda, we see you, but we can't seem to get you in here. All right, so denial is the heartbeat of racism. And again, I want to just say racist is a pejorative word, not a descriptive word. And saying we're not racist it's being neutral. It's, it is a form of denial, because we can't heal something in others, in our culture, if we can't heal it in ourselves first. So saying I'm not a racist would be the equivalent of myself saying I am not a racist, but neither am I against racism. I personally want to be against racism. I want to be for inclusivity. I want to be for oneness. So the opposite for me of racist is not racist. It is anti-racist. And what's the difference between those two? Well, one endorses the idea of a racial hierarchy as a racist or racial equality. Let me just look at this for a second. A racist endorses the idea of a racial hierarchy. And one either believes that problems are rooted in groups of people or not, or locates the root of problems in power and policies. You hear the difference there? One either allows racial inequalities to persevere or confronts racial inequalities, which is a lot of what we're seeing happen in our culture right now. We're finally standing up shoulder to shoulder and confronting a lot of these inequalities. In chapter 2, we'll get into what some of the specifics are. So the claim of not racist is ultimately a denial of racism. And racism does exist, so we cannot deny it. We have to accept it as a reality in order to work on healing it. Clear? Just like if we were an alcoholic or a drug addict, we have to accept that we have the problem in order to heal it. That may seem harsh, but we need to return to this courage, this place of courage, this place of honesty. because healing can only happen from there. And we also have to say it's not the worst word in the English language, because it is identifying what is calling to be healed. So one of the things that we have to do in this work is take the sting out of the word. Jim said that or somebody said, or maybe it was Jamie, there's, if we say I'm a racist, or somebody says you're a racist, we have a visceral reaction to it as a white person. Somebody says it to me, I have to stop and think about, okay, what are they saying? Because I have a natural cultural reaction to it. And, but when I do this work, I can say, yeah, okay, I hear that. I understand that. I accept that. And yeah, there are aspects that I still need to work on. So it's not the equivalent of a slur. It's descriptive of a fact. It is used to identify something so that it can be dismantled. Okay, so we can use the word racist in this class and know, or in this book study, and know that it is a description of what we are working on dismantling. So the word has value. It's not a slur.
Gordon, if you don't mind, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Just out of curiosity, because I need to learn from your perception and perspective, okay, of being a white American.
And I need to learn
what exactly, and I'm open, and you can be as realistic and as blunt as you want, okay? You don't have to worry about offending me, because I'm here to learn and listen and learn, okay? I'm not here to tell you that you're wrong about anything. But when I hear you say that there are some aspects of racism that you need to work on yourself, what exactly are those aspects of racism? Are you prejudiced? Are you contributing to laws that benefit you and not anybody else? What exactly do you mean? Can you be more specific with that? Because I believe that's the only way we can get some conversation out of it.
Yeah, thank you for asking. I will be as honest as I can. And I say that because I'm still discovering things. Let me give you a little bit of background. I lived in a much more diverse area before I moved here. My daughter is half Hispanic, so she's multiracial. And I used to, up until recently, I would say I was not racist. Racism just didn't really enter into my consciousness, what we think of as racism normally. But there's been things that I've noticed about myself, and especially since I'm reading this book. I'll give you an example. The other night I was in the grocery store, and there was a couple in front of me, and they were a black couple. And if I'm in line with somebody, we're waiting in line and everything, I'm the kind of person that'll strike up a conversation. But what went through my head is, well, how would they react to me with everything that's going on as a white guy striking up a conversation with them? What would they think? And I thought, wait a minute, that's stupid, Gordon. I mean, you wouldn't ask that question if you were striking up a conversation with a white couple. I go, oh, here's something I need to work on. I don't knowingly support racist policies. And,
okay. I'm sorry, just real quick, just a couple of lines. I don't think that that's racist. I think that that's being considerate and careful.
Okay.
I wouldn't.
Well, thank you.
I just think that you're just being considerate. I think I would be the same way, to be honest with you. I wouldn't think that I was racist because of that. I think that you're just being considerate and careful, considering the tension that is in the air because of things that is going on. So I wouldn't. I mean, that's just my perception. That's just my opinion. But that is nice that you observed that for yourself.
Yeah. And another example, at the same time yesterday, I was walking out of PetSmart, and these two black people came walking right up to me, and I had a moment of fear. And so I smiled. I was wearing my mask, so they couldn't see me smile. And I think that kind of makes things a little more difficult right now. But I also don't want to make anybody sick, and but what went through me is, as I felt that moment of fear, is like, wait a minute, would I be feeling that fear if these two guys were white? Maybe I would, because they were kind of getting, we have our space, and they were kind of getting in my space. I don't think it was intentional, but there was still that moment. And
Yeah.
it makes me think, okay, so would I react that same way if it was two white guys?
You know, and again, Gordon, I would have had the same reaction if anybody of any color came walking up in my proximity like that. That's just basic human survival instincts. If somebody unknowingly is walking into my space, no matter what color they are, I'm not gonna think of myself as racist because they're white, black, or anything.
Yeah.
Again, you're using a survival mechanism. I don't think that you was being racist in that situation. You know,
good. Thank you.
I kind of have you know, as I'm listening to you, I never knew that white Americans who were working on their racism was walking on eggshells like that. That's what it sounded like to me, is that you're walking on eggshells.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And that's unfortunate.
It is.
Yes. Because situations that you just call simple survival or being considerate in the situation, you automatically defaulting like to, damn, am I being racist? No, you're not being racist. You just you're being considerate of attention, and somebody walking to your space. What are you walking in my space for?
Yeah.
You don't know what their intentions are. A couple of white guys could have walked up to you, and their intentions could have been to rob you.
Probably in that case, yeah, I would have. Yeah, so it's and also because until 4 years ago, I was pretty I thought everything was cool. We were making progress as a culture, and so I never said anything. I never did much with it. And that's kind of a form of denial. I see a lot of other hands going up, so I'm going to let some other people talk here. Cheryl.
In response to what you guys were talking about the racial activity, from my own perspective, I'd say, occasions when, if I've been looking for a home or looking for a house to buy, I look at the neighborhood, and it doesn't have to be black people that live there. That's not the problem. But if it's a really depressed area where there's a lot of poor white trash, as we would call, then I'm going to be second guess whether I want to live there or not. And that, to me, is racist.
Okay. Jamie.
Sorry, I had to unmute. And I think, as you guys were talking about that, I thought about just, like, for me, basic privilege. I'll be honest with everybody. I'm not in. I didn't go to prison because I'm white. In the 80s in Missouri, I had a felony drug charge and I got probation, and I saw other people. Yes. I saw other people get the 1 to 5 that I should have gotten, to be honest with you. And I remember when I remember during Occupy, and then during the Dakota Access Pipeline and things like that. Big efforts to bank locally, to divest from some of these larger corporations that are, involved in private prisons. I think that's, that's part of it, is like, sometimes, like, for me, I get caught up in the smaller things, but the larger systemic things that I still have my tentacles in. That are, that's kind of what I see as my biggest issue, is still having that privilege and taking advantage of it.
Yeah. The stats, you bring up the stats on prison. That's actually in next week's thing, but I'll tell you about it. Let's see. Nonviolent African American prisoners serve an average of 58.7 months in prison. That's nonviolent, for nonviolent crime, as opposed to white offenders who commit violent crimes spend roughly the same amount of time. And 56% of all nonviolent prisoners are black. And we'll get into, prisons for profit and things like that, which is, that could be a whole nother discussion. But yeah, you're right. There is a very definite prejudice there. So anybody else have their hands up? No. Okay. Where are we? We're just barely touching the very beginning here of this. This is a great conversation. I want to thank you all for participating. So okay. So there's good news in all this. And the good news is that these racist and anti-racist are not fixed states. We do sometimes move back and forth between them. We can move back and forth between them. We can grow from them. It's not about blame or guilt. It's about becoming fully human and being able to see others as fully human. So another definition of racism is a marriage of racist ideas and policies that produces and normalizes racial inequities. And we certainly see that happening in our culture. Ideas and policies that make racial inequities normal. You know, it's just the way things are. But does it need to be the way things stay? And definitions are important because definitions anchor us in principles. And so if we don't do, and I'm quoting Ibram Kendi here, if we don't do the basic work of defining the kind of people we want to be in language that is stable and consistent, we cannot work towards stable and consistent goals. So what we're kind of doing right now is getting a clear definition of what racism is.
That's, may I make a comment at this point?
Sure.
I don't want to take up all the air, but this is very important to me. And I think it would be useful if we had that definition you're referring to. And so far I've heard three, but if we could agree or settle on one definition, and each one of us, maybe homework, I'm sorry, maybe I'm trumping you here, but it would be helpful for me, like Daryl asked you, just how are you being racist? I would like to be able to define that in myself, compare it to the definition that we had, that we come to terms with, and then perhaps identify what I can do to counteract that or to dissolve that particular issue in our lives.
Okay.
So, all right, that's all I'm going to say for now. Thank you.
I have a couple 2 cents about that, if I could. I just think that if for purposes of this discussion, because we're talking about a particular work, a literary work, I don't know that we need to define it. It's been defined in the book. And maybe it's just because not everyone has read the first chapter of the book, but since we're doing a book discussion, it's already been defined, at least in as much as what we're talking about with this work is concerned. So
yeah,
okay, I will give you the definitions again here. Okay. And let me just say, Jim, our own each one of us, our personal experience of racism is going to be different. Yeah. Our personal definition is going to be different. And my definition of my personal racism will not be the same as anybody else's.
Exactly.
And for me, I would just sum it up to say it was being unconscious of what was going on. Okay, being ignorant. So just to make it easy. So let me give you the definitions from the book, okay? The first one, and like all definitions, there's more than one. The first one is one who is supporting a racist policy through their actions or inaction or expressing a racist idea. The other one is, let me get down to it here. A marriage of racist ideas and policies that produces and normalizes racial inequities. So I would say the first definition is more individual. The second one is more societal.
Yeah, and maybe I'm talking about something beyond this discussion, Neely. Thank you for clarifying that. Yeah, I agree with you.
Okay.
By the way.
Good. Okay.
Yeah, and that's just my opinion, Jim. I appreciate you speaking, but it's just, I think, I don't want to talk over the author of the book and his definition, since we're talking about this book in particular.
Yeah, it is a Black perspective, and I did happen to notice that Daryl's head was big nodding when he was hearing definitions.
Yeah. All right. So
And
this might help.
Can you post that on the Facebook page or anything?
Not right now. I can later.
No, later.
Yeah.
Later.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. All right.
Daryl is trying to get back in. He's waiting for you to let him in from the
Oh.
lobby.
Okay. I'm not looking at the waiting room now because pretty much everybody's in. There we go. Okay, Daryl. What are racist policies? So that's the next definition that's in the book, is what are racist policies? Racist policies are written and unwritten law, rules, procedures, regulations, and guidelines that govern people. Okay. There's no such thing as a non-racist or race-neutral policy, the author says. Because we are human beings, we're going to have our biases. There's just really no way around that. And he describes it 3 different kinds of racism. There's systemic racism, institutional racism, and structural racism. So one of the ways we can clarify it is when we're looking at, say, a particular policy, we can say, does it create equity or inequity? If it is creating equity, it is anti-racist. If it is creating inequity, it is racist. So give you an example of that as a non-written policy, a cultural policy, as you will. It's one we hear a lot. It's one that somebody said to me just the other day when they heard Black Lives Matter. This person said, well, all lives matter. To which I respond, well, of course they do. But in this discussion, in this experience, Black lives matter. And why? Because for 500 years in North America, they haven't. That's why. You know, to say all lives matter, well, that's being racist because it's being too neutral. You know, I don't even know where else to go with that one. That's the difference. Here's some other examples from the book. He quotes Lyndon Johnson. You do not take a person who for years has been hobbled by chains and liberate him, bring him up to the starting line of a race and say, you are free to compete with all the others, and still justly believe that you have been completely fair. Kendi says this, the most threatening racist movement is not the alt-right's unlikely drive for a white ethno-state, but the regular Americans' drive for a race-neutral state. Comments? No? Clear? Okay, so we are going a little over. What is a racist idea? Kendi says that any idea that suggests that one racial group is inferior or superior to another racial group in any way. What is an anti-racist idea? Any idea that suggests that racial groups are equal in all of their apparent differences, that there is nothing right or wrong with any racial group. You know, we all have our strengths. We all have our weaknesses. We all have areas we are growing in. Okay. I'm going to comment on some of the comments here. Oh, what is the name of the book, Daryl? The name of the book is How to Be an Anti-Racist. It's, oops, right there. You can see it, that book right there. It's available on Kindle. So I had planned this to be an hour long. We are nowhere near half part. We're just barely scratching the surface here. And we are over an hour. So I think we will stop it right here, except for any other comments or discussion.
I mean, there's something that's been weighing on me that's pretty controversial, and I'm a little afraid to say it, but there's certain documents in which this country was founded on that are clearly racist.
Oh, sure.
And I, you know, it would thrill me if we could legislate a rewrite. Like, because it said all men are created equal when it meant white landowners, male landowners, specifically. I mean, it even goes as far as to call Native Americans savages, which we slur.
And blacks were two-thirds of a person or something like that.
Yeah, a lot of that stuff. And like, people just love those documents. Like, I was raised to love those documents. And before I understood, I thought they were really awesome. And then, but now looking back at it, like, that's not so awesome. Like, we can do better. And especially knowing that a lot of those men, those rich white men, were slave owners. And worse. I don't know. That's just something that's been on my mind.
You know, human beings are evolutionary beings. We are supposed to be evolving and growing and changing. So yeah, it's important to understand that.
Real quick, I think it was very interesting that Michael brought out that when he said it all been created equal, that it applied to landowners who were primarily white, of course, but he didn't say. He said, notice he said landowners, and he didn't say all people.
That's right.
And I'm not sure that he said that because he is aware that even before colonialism in the U.S., the Europeans also had a lot of classism. They already had slaves, and they already had. There was one step that's above slavery.
Indentured servitude.
Indentured servitude, something like that. That's what it is. Because even if you were a European and you were a slave, you was not considered equal to the landowner, to the class of the landowner.
Right.
See, and a lot of people, I'm not sure how aware some European Americans are of that, but a lot of the classism, especially slavery, started within their own ethnic group before it expanded to Africans, Israelites, Aborigines, Native Americans, and whoever else.
The indentured servant, you were a servant for you were essentially a slave for 7 years, but it did have an end. Whereas if you were a slave, there was no end. But yeah, there were different classes of people from the very beginning. And Michael, you're right. In fact, the statutes had things like, not only did you have to be a white landowner, but you couldn't be an idiot. Of course, who gets to define idiot? It's amazing, when you dig into it, how far we've come and how far we still have to go. And part of that movement forward is recognizing that it wasn't founded perfect. And, there are still corrections to be made. We can't go back and change the past, but we certainly can change the now. Kendi?
Yes, so my son said to me when I asked him the following question, I said, is your girlfriend black? And he said, that's a racist question and I refuse to answer it. Do you think that was a racist question?
I would have to know the thoughts going through your head. On the surface, yes, definitely. What difference does it make?
I think it was the way you asked it. I'm sorry to interject, but to ask someone if their girlfriend is a black, it comes off kind of funny, Yeah. Then is a girl.
Maybe I said, what race is your girlfriend? I don't know. I'm not going to meet her for a long time. She lives in Ohio and he lives in DC, and all my nieces and nephews are mixed. And I just wondered if I was going to have an opportunity to have some more mixed grandchildren. But anyway, apparently a lot of you think it was a racist question.
No. What I was getting at, Candy, it was the way that it was asked. What I heard you say was, is your girlfriend a black? You don't want to say things like a black. You know, is your girlfriend black? Sounds a little bit less like, what am I trying to say? Like she's a thing or something, you know.
Oh,
it's the way.
I see. And I don't think I said a black. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm remembering it wrong. Okay.
And-
You think you in my situation, would you ask if the future daughter-in-law was white or black?
Candy,
For a picture.
Candy, may I make a suggestion?
Yes.
I think getting input is important, but I think equally, if not more important, is one of our traditions in the Unity family is to take that question into meditation, see what your body tells you. Where is that coming from? And then based on that, you can track what intention you had there. Yes?
Yeah, if it's genuine, you know, just wanting, if it was me, I probably would have said, well, tell me about your girlfriend. I don't know.
He would not have mentioned her skin complexion.
Well, it probably wouldn't have come into my head.
I think it's really easy to assume that that's a racist question, whether you meant it that way or not. And that's where that's why you ask the question, because there's this debate in your head going on whether or not the statement I made was racist. And like, if you've got a question, then maybe you can think about instead about how to word that in a way that isn't going to offend somebody. Like, oh, that's great. Like, can I see a picture? You know, can I just want to know what she looks like, or something like that. And there's no way that could be construed any sort of way. And of course you'd respond, oh, she's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yes. She makes a point of not putting her picture on the, I think he told me she was 6 feet tall. And so that's why I kind of asked, because most of my really tall lady friends are not white. A couple of my Swedish friends are. But anyway, and because some of my black relatives are born in Africa and some of them are not, there's just a different atmosphere in the home when it's international. If they're all American, they're one way, no matter what their complexion. That's my opinion, kind of. But anyway, we're going to find out. We'll see how long they date. It's been a couple of years now. Thank you.
Looking good. All right. All right, gang. Anything else? There we go. Well, I want to thank you all for joining us. We'll be here again next Monday at 2 o'clock. We'll pick it up again. And invite your friends. We're good. As we get deeper into the book, it'll get more fun, more work, maybe a little more edgy. We'll see. Again, thank you all for being here, and have a wonderful.
When are we doing this again?
Huh?
Same time next week.
Same time next week.
Oh.
All right. Thanks a lot, y'all. Gordon, thanks for having me,
Good to
man. I
see you
appreciate
all.
it. Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Thanks, Gordon. Thank you,
Bye.
Michael.
Thank you.
Next week. Bye.